Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Aviana. This is Aviana's Ascension. And today we are doing a self-healing vlog for women who often abandon themselves for others or for comfort zones. Okay, so this is a really important topic. I feel like a lot of women put their needs on the back burner to take care of others, to show up for others how other people want you to show up, or they limit themselves because of certain comfort zones, certain lifestyles, habits, certain people, environments, so you don't ruffle any feathers, And we're going to talk about why women do this and how to overcome it. All right, so let's get into it. So this is an important topic because it can be very detrimental to you and the people around you if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't live a life of fulfillment. You know what I mean? It's like that saying people have, like, if you don't express your needs, express your boundaries, express what's upsetting you, then you're going to be suffering in silence. And then people will say, like, oh, well, this person was always happy. I can't believe they're, having a breakdown all of a sudden. You know what I mean? So we're not going to suffer in silence. That also does not mean we're going to be like a tyrant and, say like, well, these are my needs and that's it. And I don't care what your needs are. No, we have to balance because other people have needs, you have needs. So how can we blend these together? Let's figure it out. It's also important to talk about this because when you have the awareness to say, oh, that's why I do this, that's how this cycle is being perpetuated, it gives you the autonomy to reclaim your power from those cycles and choose something different for yourself. You have the power to say in your life, if this is not working for me, what do I need to do to change it? Bringing that awareness into your field is so, so important because you are the creator of your own life. If it's not working for you, if you're not happy, if there's something else that you want to go towards, you need to be able to stand up for that. You need to be able to stand in that truth confidently and not feel bad and not feel guilty, not feel stupid for doing so. All right. So let's get into it. We're going to start off talking about why women abandon themselves for others or for comfort zones. And then we'll talk about how can we overcome that. So first of all, what does that even mean? Abandoning yourself for others, especially, if you have children or if you have a demanding work situation, or maybe you have a partner who you tend to do a lot for, whatever the situation is. And again, I'm not saying you're not going to be a good mom anymore, or you're not going to listen to the needs of your partner. No, it's just about bringing more balance into that. Okay? Because first and foremost, you're a person. You're an individual person. Yes, there are things like being a daughter, being a mom, being a business owner, or being an employee are very important things. But first and foremost, even without those things, you're still a person and you're still important, even if none of those things were here. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about it. So why do women do this? Why do women abandon themselves for others and for their comfort zones? So a lot of the times it can be societal expectations, kind of like what I was just saying. You're a mom, so you feel like, okay, well, if I choose to have a me day and have my kids, have their other parent take care of them, or have my parents help me out, or my babysitter, or my siblings, whatever the case is, we feel like that means we're not doing a good job. We're selfish. This is one thing I want. I want women to get into being selfish. It's not bad to be selfish. It's so important to honor your needs, honor what you need. You have to do that. Because if you don't, like I said earlier, you're suffering in silence and people have no idea that something's going on with you. So yeah, a lot of the time societal expectations, like being a mom and feeling like if I don't do this, I'm a bad mom. If I do this, then I'm a good mom, and any sort of rejection I have about this situation should be silenced because I should be a mom first and foremost. You know what I mean? And while there are moments, of course, when you're a parent that you have to make sacrifices and do things for your kids that you might not want to do or you might not feel like you have time for. But I want that to be the exception and not the rule. You know what I mean? Some other things, like at work, And I see this a lot, like on TikTok and stuff. People will say, oh, I was trying to request a day off, or I put in some PTO, and then my boss came back at me and said, oh, well, you're not really being a team player. I saw another one where this guy was like just taking his hour lunch, and they noticed that he took 30 minutes and then did another 30 minutes to like just chill or do something else. And he got an email saying, we noticed that, and other people, they come right back after like 15 minutes. So we were wondering, like, if you could be more of a team player and have a shorter lunch and then just come back. And it's like, no. Especially with companies, it's one thing if you own the company, but when you're just an employee, you do not need to abandon yourself or sacrifice yourself for a company, especially a company that would have you replaced the next day if something happened to you. You know what I mean? So yes, we all love the idea of being a team player, of supporting the work environment, but not at the cost of abandoning yourself. And I do think, especially in the corporate world, that is a thing that is promoted and celebrated, is people, not spending as much time with family, not taking your holidays off, not going on vacations just to make the company look better, to get numbers up. Like, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. There's also the energy of being a martyr. And I think this is very common in women. You feel like you have to save someone. You have to be the person that saves the baby bird. You know what I mean? And listen, some people, sometimes you do need a little help. You do need to save people. But first and foremost, people need to save themselves. That's something that I had to learn. I had to learn that if I am giving someone guidance or advice or support or being a shoulder to lean on, but they keep making these decisions and they keep finding themselves in certain predicaments, they want to be there. That's what you got to realize. You know what's going on in my head right now? That J. Cole song that says, don't save her, she don't want to be saved. Don't save her, she don't want to be saved. Don't save her. She doesn't want to be saved. They don't want to be saved. Sometimes people love the idea of causing havoc in their lives and then having someone to run to so they can continue to be kind of like a victim to things that they participated in, that they caused. This is a big thing why you got to understand you create your own reality and you have the power to change your reality if you want to. Because when you stand in that for yourself, then it's a lot harder for other people to be playing around in their lives and for you to come and save them from that. That's what they want. You know what I mean? And if they wanted to change their lives, they would. And I understand sometimes people are lost and they don't know what to do, but, think about a moment in your life when you were lost, And I'm sure maybe you had some help and support. Maybe you didn't. Either way, you managed to get up out of that space, right? It wasn't all, oh, this person helped me, and if it wasn't for them, who knows where I would be. I mean, maybe a bit of that, but you had to also be an active participant. You had to show up. You had to make the changes. Also understand that when you're always saving someone, you are taking away their ability to stand up for themselves, to get themselves out of rock bottom, right? Because the amount of confidence you get when you are able to get yourself out of a low space, it's unbelievable, And that motivation, that ambition, that's what gets you to keep going, keep going, keep going. When someone is always there picking you up, you don't have respect and appreciation for how hard it was to get back up. And that will make it a lot easier to fall back down because you don't understand what it took to get back up. You know what I mean? So understand, as beautiful and as amazing as it might make you feel, as it might feel to some people that you're helping out, you're keeping them stuck down there because they're not understanding the work that needs to be done to get themselves up. They're not appreciating that, And it's also a situation, it's kind of like if a baby was learning how to walk, and of course they like kind of weeble wobble a bit and, they're finding their balance and then they fall and you go and scoop the baby up and you're like, oh my God, baby, you're never going to fall again. Not on my watch. And then you carry the baby forever. Then that baby doesn't learn how to walk. Yes, that baby also does not understand the pain of falling, and kind of like, babies don't get embarrassed, but if they did, I imagine they would be a little embarrassed about like kind of weeble wobbling, you know? So yes, they wouldn't have those growing pains, but then they also wouldn't have the growth. You got to understand, people have to go through growing pains. People have to hit rock bottom and get themselves back up. You know, it is one thing if someone says, I'm at rock bottom. Here's, you know, I need a little bit of help. I need a place to stay. Could I borrow a little bit of money? Whatever. If it's someone who is truly trying to do the work, if this is someone you've given money to, and they still end up in the same position, you got to cut it off, you know? And don't feel bad about that, because trust and believe, like I hit the mic. There were moments in my life where, you know, people had to give me some harsh truths. And of course, at first I wasn't ready to hear it. But now that I'm in a great space in my life, I'm so glad that people said certain things to me, or that people, you know, cut me off in certain ways. I understand, and I'm not mad, you know? But you got to give people the opportunity to get to the other side of that. Initially, yeah, maybe they'll feel abandoned by you. Maybe they'll feel hurt. Maybe they'll feel disrespected. Maybe they'll think you're selfish. But none of that matters if on the other side of it, they get the help they need and they recover and they overcome. They're going to be grateful to you. And maybe they'll never be grateful, and then they'll never figure it out. At least in that space, you've freed yourself from the burden. You know, it's not yours to carry. Let people figure their shit out. You have to. Oh, another one. Okay, I have little notes here because you know I'm not remembering everything. Another one, though, is be the good girl, the nice girl. Okay. I think this could be, I mean, honestly, this can impact women of all ages because we have different generations and different things that were going on during different times. But I think some women, they feel like, oh, well, I don't want to ruffle feathers. I just want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to feel good. I want everyone to be happy with me. And this can be especially like if you were praised for getting good grades, or, you know, like helping out around the house a lot, but maybe you weren't acknowledged for really anything else. It can really kind of create like an addiction, you know, like wanting to have that external validation, wanting to be the peace and the good kid and not create any waves. Especially if you have other siblings, and maybe you had another sibling that was maybe a little bit more rowdier or needed a bit more attention from your parents, then naturally you just became the quiet one, and you're like, that's fine. I don't want to cause any more problems for them. I'm just going to be good and mind my business and focus on my schoolwork, you know. So that's a very common one as well. And all of these, again, are not your fault, you know. It's what we've been taught, whether within our own homes or in our society. So I don't mention these things to say like, oh, this is what you're doing and this is how you need to fix it. Like, no, we've all been conditioned a certain way, and we're all going to have to unlearn certain things for our entire life. That's not a threat. That doesn't mean you're not doing a good job. It's just an opportunity to grow and learn. That's what we're here to do on earth. You know, so don't feel like feel guilty or judge yourself because of these things, you know. Another reason why women abandon themselves, or specifically like choosing comfort zones over growth, is because of limiting beliefs. You know, if you think you're not worthy, you're not smart, you're not good enough, you're not ready, then it's going to be a lot easier to stay in a comfort zone that's no longer helping you thrive, you know? And the thing with comfort zones is maybe like at one point you needed that comfort because you didn't know how to handle a situation or how to show up in your life without it. You know, this could be an example of like maybe someone who's anxious, you know, whenever you're younger, or whenever before you're able to develop other tools, anxiety, overthinking can be very beneficial. You know, we all have these different parts of us, the inner child, the feminine, the masculine, the higher self, the ego, the brain, like all of these different parts of us all have a seat at the table. They all want the same goal, which is to keep you safe. So whenever you don't know how to tap into your higher self, trust your intuition, then naturally you're going to need something. And that's going to be overthinking. That's going to be anxiety, right? So at one point, anxiety was very useful, very beneficial. Gratitude for that. But now you're in a space where you're ready to outgrow that. You're ready to have more trust. So you have to learn how to have appreciation and set this down so you can stand into this. You know what I mean? It's kind of like knowing when to take the training wheels off of a bike. Like at one point I needed these. I couldn't, move around without them. But now I know I can do it without them. I just have to trust. I just have to believe in myself. And again, these limiting beliefs can come from a million things. They can come from childhood, past relationships, friendships. Like if you've been around somebody who put you down a lot, that definitely will impact you. This can also be like certain things that you watch, that you consume, and now they've become your thoughts and how you're feeling, right? Know that also sometimes you're around people that maybe they think this about themselves and then they project that. Especially if you're very sensitive, you are a lot more susceptible to other people's energies than you might be aware of. So there's going to be certain thoughts, certain beliefs that may not be yours, but because you are more sensitive, they've attached to you. Okay. Another aspect of limiting beliefs is the brain and the ego. Again, their job is to keep you safe, right? So the brain and the ego, they use past experiences, societal expectations to decide if you're going to be safe in a situation or not. So when you're trying to grow and expand and do things you've never done before, naturally the brain and the ego are going to be like, hold up, little shawty, what are you doing? This isn't safe, And the brain and the ego will come up with some logical excuses to slow you down. They'll be like, oh, but you're tired. Like before I came on here to record this, mind you, I haven't done a vlog in probably like 2-3 years, at least, I would say. I really don't remember the last time I did one, but I like them, so I'm happy to bring them back. But before I got on here, my brain was trying to say like, oh, you need to like have this all memorized, or it has to look a certain way. Even those are things that are helpful, right? But they will slow me down, like I'll keep re-recording, or I'll keep adjusting everything, delaying until I run out of time. And then I'm like, great, now I can't even record it yet, Or it'll say like, oh, but you're tired. You don't have time for that. What about maybe you do this instead? Like another thing, I was doing my hair, getting ready to come on here, and my brain was like, cut your hair. Not like in a crazy way, like a trim, because I cut my own hair and I haven't cut it in a while. And I was like, yeah, I should cut my hair. And I was like, but wait, I'm not focusing on that right now. I'm focusing on getting ready for this vlog. Stop distracting me, And again, when you have that in your awareness and you're like, okay, the brain's going to give me logical excuses as to why I shouldn't show up for this, why I should be delaying myself. Once you're aware that the brain be doing that, you're like, wait a minute, you cut it out, stop it, we're going to keep going, And again, it's not anything to like judge yourself about or get mad at your brain or anything. Like, no, the brain's just doing its job. And you have to show your brain and your ego that you are okay, that you are safe, that you are worthy, that you do have time. And the more that you act against those limiting thoughts, the less that they're going to appear. And then the brain's going to realize like, wait, no, we do trust ourselves. We are worthy. We are smart enough, The brain is very malleable. So if you're thinking thoughts that aren't uplifting you, start redirecting those thoughts. Say out loud the opposite, and we're going to get into more little tips and tricks to combat this energy. Another reason why we may abandon ourselves or stay in comfort zones is because of past pain. Of course, classic. We all have our past pain, and it takes some time to be able to learn from it and reclaim your power from it. So if that's, your soft spot is past pain, like please don't judge yourself for that. Please don't. Every single human on this earth deals with it. Yes, to varying degrees, but It's very common. Okay, so an example of this is, say you took a risk or you bet on yourself, but it didn't end how you expected. Naturally, that brain, that ego is going to be like, remember when you tried to do this back in the day? Remember? And it didn't work out? Yeah, let's sit down. No, no, no. Okay, that's why it's so important to reflect on past situations where you were disappointed, where you were hurt, so you can understand what you were being taught. Because let me tell you something, the universe never wants to teach you to limit yourself. The universe never wants to teach you to doubt yourself, to question yourself, to put yourself in a box. Why would the universe want that? No, absolutely not. Sometimes the universe is teaching you that rejection is protection. Sometimes the universe is teaching you to set boundaries, to trust your intuition, to put yourself first. So sometimes when we don't have those lessons ingrained in us, we have to learn them through experiences, through certain people, Because think about it. Sometimes you don't know you have a boundary until it gets crossed, right? So it's not to say that that person's a bad person or you deserved that or you were dumb for even putting yourself out there. No, it was to say like, oh, that's a boundary. Now I've learned that. Thank you so much, right? Because we're all the universe. So sometimes the universe comes in a human vessel to teach you something, and you're there to teach that person something. Let yourself learn the lessons, because when you don't learn the lessons, then you're just carrying the pain and re-traumatizing yourself. And we don't want that. It does take time, but honestly, I would start with journaling and just writing out the things that I've been through and how it impacted me. And also, what was your role? You have to reflect on, how did I get in this position, right? An example, I not recently, like back in October or something, broke up with my boyfriend at the time. And a big part of that process for me, like healing it, was reflecting on how did I end up in that position? Because he was so nice, so sweet, but he had some of his own demons, as we all do. And I had to ask myself, like, why was I not honoring my boundaries, my needs? Why was I compromising so much to be in a relationship? It's very easy to point the finger at other people and say, like, you did this to me, you didn't show up in this way. That may be true, but why did you stay there then? You got to be real with yourself. And the more real you are with yourself, the more you can take accountability and have that reflection, the less likely it is these things are going to reoccur for you. Another big thing that women do when it comes to abandoning themselves, especially for the comfort zones, is overestimating their fear. Ooh, that's a good one. So this can be a million different things, right? This could be, oh, what about money? Like, what if I'm not as financially secure? What if I don't have the time? What will I look like? What if I make a mistake? What if? A million what ifs. You know what I call people like that? I call them doomsday preppers. I always tell people, like, when I'm doing a reading and I have a client like saying, what if this, what if this? I'm like, get out of the bunker. That's like saying, what if a comet blows through my house right now? Do you think I'm never going to do my vlogs or my readings again? Do you think I'm going to go to my, like my cellar downstairs and like wait there for the rest of my life? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is like saying, what if I get in an accident and you never drive again? You never get in a car again. And I know there are some people like that, but they need to free themselves from that too. Okay? Your fear cannot be stronger than your passion. It cannot be stronger than your dream. And trust me, I get it. I'm out here trying to create a business doing alchemy work for women. And you know what? It's working, but obviously it's scary. But I would rather, and I'm not kidding you guys, I would rather like live in my car and keep this business than settle for being an employee to anybody. I don't care what I would have to do. I'd sell every possession I have except my tarot decks and my camera, and that would be that. You know what I mean? Because that's how passionate I am about what it is I'm doing. I don't care how scared I am, I will never stop, because it's what I'm meant to do. You got to have that kind of drive, that kind of like volition for something, because fear is always going to pop up. Say you're wanting to get your body right. What if I look dumb at the gym? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if? What if you look amazing? What if you can do it? What if you do have the time? What if you make the time? What if you do end up extremely successful? You have to start combating that fear. And you have to start just kind of like not negotiating with yourself anymore. Like, you have to say, if this is what I want, I'm committing to that. I don't care how scary it could be. You know what I'm saying? You can't let fear distract you or be bigger than what it is that you love, than what it is that you need for yourself. You can't do it. This one's a classic, especially about abandoning yourself for others. Feeling bad for setting boundaries. Listen, who hasn't been there? I feel bad for setting boundaries a lot because it's a lot. I mean, I was raised to like go along with everything that my mom said and to not ask questions and to just be a good kid. Like, even nowadays, I'm still like, I don't want to tell her my opinion sometimes. But that's something that I'm slowly unlearning. And, you don't have to feel bad about boundaries, especially if it's people that truly love you and want to support you. Like, if I found out I was crossing a friend's boundary or a loved one's boundary, I would feel so bad, you know, and I would immediately rectify that because that's how much I love my people. So if you're setting a boundary and you feel like, someone's not going to be receptive to it, especially someone who claims they love you, you need to reevaluate some things there. Because if their love is conditional and based on how much they can get out of you and how much you will abandon yourself to be there for them, that's not a good relationship. I don't care who is involved in that. That's no good. Do not suffer in silence because it's easier to deal with your own discomfort than to deal with the discomfort of not pleasing everyone. Also, if you were supposed to please everyone, I don't know, Spirit would have made you maybe an air freshener, a candle, maybe a really nice blanket. But you're a human. You're not here to fit the mold of what everyone else wants you to be. So let's stop that. Cut it out. All right, let's dive a bit deeper into comfort zones and why we stay in comfort zones rather than growing. Like I said earlier, the brain and the ego is very heavily involved in that. And also, like, your shadow self, your inner child, like the parts of you that are wounded or that are trying to control, they don't like change. They want to be able to keep you safe by predicting everything that's going to happen. So when you're going towards new things and they don't know what's going on, naturally they're going to try to get you to regress. But yeah, so the big thing with comfort zones is they're predictable. They're consistent. It's easy. We know what to expect. And obviously, like, I love a surprise birthday party, but people don't like surprises. People don't like to change. It's very uncomfortable. That's why most people don't. That's why most people would rather abandon themselves and their own growth to just stay comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, it's not this crazy phenomena. Like, people do it all the time. So don't judge yourself. Don't think you're crazy or you're behind the mark because your comfort zones get you. Like, people do it all the time. And sometimes it's for chaotic comfort zones. If you're not used to peace and calm in your life, you're going to chase after chaos, whether that's, certain people or like just involving yourself in other people's lives too much. It's very, very easy to ignore your own growth when you're sitting over here saying, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Whenever we do that, I feel like there's a part of us that wants us to grow. And because we're ignoring it so much, it's like, fine, I'll project it onto this person or this situation. Another reason for comfort zones is sometimes you're underestimating yourself. And that kind of goes back to overestimating the fear, feeling like you don't have what it takes. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough, whatever, whatever, whatever. Hey, if the dream was not meant for you, if you couldn't bring it to life, the universe would not have sent it to you. So stop downplaying yourself. Another big thing, especially for women, is feeling guilty or ashamed for asking for more. I had this especially like with my business and like the rates I charge, and trying to even just suggest to people like, oh, a ceremony would really be beneficial for you. Even though I fully believe in what I do and I did it for myself, so I know it's very impactful, I still feel guilty or like weird about suggesting it to people. And I think that's something that a lot of women deal with, is just feeling bad or feeling guilty or feeling ashamed for wanting more, for wanting more money, for wanting more free time, for wanting more appreciation. And the thing is, you should not feel bad about that. You should not feel weird about that. And notice if you do, what little things can you do to kind of start exposing yourself to asking for more? Something that I'll do, I work at a restaurant as well. So, like, if I need help, I ask for help. Or if someone is trying to help me with something, I let them help me instead of being like, no, 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 I got it. Like, I don't have to shy away from help and a hand. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make it better if you do it all on your own. You know what I mean? And that's a different conversation for a different day. And then the last thing I want to talk about before we dive into how to undo all this is it's expected of you to not honor your boundaries, to not honor your needs, to participate in certain behaviors and habits and things like that. So what happens when you change? People expect certain things from you, so how can you change? I think that's a big, big, big one. Big one, especially with, I mean, all of it. Because you got to think about, like, if you're trying to, you know, take care of yourself, become a healthier version of you, but your friends are used to you going out with them every weekend, or your friends are used to you staying up late, or, eating unhealthy, drinking a lot, whatever the case is, then it feels really weird to show up differently. And it feels like okay, Spirit's coming in here. It feels like some of you are worried that it's not worth it. You think, okay, if I grow and do all of this, then my friends aren't going to recognize me. We won't be doing the same things. I won't fit in with them. And then on the other side, it's like, okay, but if I start setting boundaries, if I start saying, I want to do this, can you take care of the kids at this time? My partner's going to freak out. They're not going to know what to do. No. Okay. No. This is what we do with that. Be honest. Have a conversation. Let people know what it is that you're wanting to do, the changes that you're wanting to make, and see who's there to support you and who's not. Not to judge, not to, throw stones at anybody, but just to notice, because everyone has their own unique journey. Some people are going to be some people are going to be more ready to embrace change than others. And sometimes, just like with the comfort zone of like anxiety, sometimes anxiety or certain friendships, certain behaviors, you need those at a certain time in your life. But when you're ready to upgrade, you recognize these are hindering me from my growth. And you cannot abandon yourself for that. So just take notice of what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and who or what is willing to participate and be a helping hand in your growth and who's not. It's not that we have to impose our own changes onto other people, but don't abandon your growth just so you can be around the same friend group, just so you can keep the same, at home routine. We're here to grow, we're here to expand and change. And it's going to be uncomfortable in certain moments, but that discomfort is kind of like the test you need from the universe to say, do you really want this? Do you really want to take care of your health, or would you rather be out with your friends late at night? Whatever the answer is, it's okay. There's no right or wrong for the universe. The universe isn't going to punish you because you decide you want to go out with your friends more than you want to wake up early to go to the gym. Like, it's okay. Just stand in whichever one authentically, 100%, Okay, so let's get into how to undo all of this. I don't know, we're vibing. Okay, so let's talk about it. So first of all, admit that you want more for yourself. Admit that you want better, that you want different. That's first, right? Because really, it's hard to implement change and to kind of reflect and dive into yourself if you don't even admit to yourself that you want something more, you know? So if you want more, if you want bigger, if you want better, admit that and get clear on exactly what that means. You know what I mean? Like, say, for example, you're like, okay, I want a better job. Okay, what? Doing what? Making how much money? What hours do you want to work? Do you want to work from home? Do you want to go to the office? Do you want to do like a hybrid kind of thing? Get specific. Where do you want to work? Where in the city? Do you want it to be close to home? Do you want a far commute? Just get clear on things like that. So that way, whenever you are starting to make those changes and opportunities come your way and you have to make decisions, you are very clear on what it is that you are wanting. And then you can make decisions with more confidence. Love that. Once you're clear on what it is that you're wanting, notice the excuses you tell yourself. Notice how you're trying to negotiate your own dreams with yourself. Absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no reason you cannot have exactly the biggest, grandest, most specific dream that you want. There's no reason you can't have it. If you can think it, if you can see it, it can come true for you. You know what helps me with this is I think of Beyonce and I think of Megan Thee Stallion, how they are both from Houston or Texas, wherever the hell. And obviously they're not exactly like Beyonce is a singer, Megan is a rapper, so it's not exactly the same, but like they're from the same place doing similar things and they're both widely successful. If they can have it, why can't you? You know what I'm saying? It's like when I get on YouTube and I see all these tarot readers and they have all these views and the numbers and the comments and the community, I don't look at that and say, like, there's not enough room for me. I say, that's proof I can do it. You know what I'm saying? There's one sun in the solar system and it's enough to give us all life. That's crazy. So if one sun can do that, you can do anything. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And when the excuses do come up, I want you to think of solutions, kind of like what I said earlier. Out loud, say the opposite. If the problem is I don't have enough time, say, well, I could wake up an hour earlier. I could find 20 minutes here and there. Find 5 sets of 20 minutes throughout the day, and that's an hour that you've already shown up for this goal, for this change. If there's certain things that you don't know, maybe you could find a mentor or someone that provides a service or a class you can take or a course you can take. Around here in Kansas City, they do a lot of like mentor meetup kind of things. And it's like business people that just share advice and give guidance. Maybe there's something local that you can look up on Facebook or Eventbrite. There are solutions. It's just about, are you more willing to look at the problem or look at the solution? Are you looking at the glass half full or half empty? And the reason I speak like this is because I know it's easier said than done, but at the end of the day, you can do it. It's just about getting out of your own way. So my thing is, don't, coddle yourself through that. Recognize that you are limiting yourself and that, you are not going to be your own worst enemy. Absolutely not. Not in my house. Not in this channel. You know what I'm saying? You have the ability to find solutions. You have the ability to look at things in a different way, and you may not have all the solutions to every problem that you can think of, but just start with one and then grow from there. As you're working through these excuses and finding solutions and things like that, you can take that a step further by noticing the root of them. What is the root of these insecurities? Where do these come from? If you feel like you don't have enough money, or like a scarcity is the thing, maybe you didn't grow up with all the security you needed. So maybe you need to do some inner child work in regards to that. Maybe you need to do some root chakra work so you feel secure, so you feel safe. Maybe connecting with Mother Earth to remind you that you do have everything you need. You know, if you feel like maybe you're not good enough, maybe there was a time whenever you were really excited about something, but it didn't work out how you wanted it to. Maybe that's a core wound right there. There's a reason that these things pop up. You know what I'm saying? Because as humans, we aren't born with doubt. We aren't born with fear. We aren't born, maybe we're born with fear, like not naturally just like scared, but like we have that instinct so that way we can keep ourselves safe, you know? But like doubting yourself and like judging yourself and like underestimating yourself, we don't do that as little babies. You know, these are things that we are taught. These are things that are developed because of circumstances that we go through. And that's why I said earlier, take the lesson, not the pain, because we go through everything for a reason, right? Everything happens for a reason. Absolutely 100%. And I know not everyone wants to believe that, because I know horrible things happen to people, but they happen for a reason. Okay. And you also have to remind yourself, hey, I'm not in heaven. I'm not in the sixth dimension. I'm not in nirvana. I'm on earth. Earth is where souls come to learn and grow, period. It's not meant to be light and fluffy all the time. There are supposed to be dark moments here. We cannot have the light without the dark, right? So understand why things happen so that way you can free yourself from the pain. And as you are going towards this new beginning, this new chapter for yourself, notice what fears come up, what excuses come up. And notice, when was the first time you felt that? What memory came up with it? And just give yourself permission to do some deep diving into that. And I know it's not easy. Most people don't do it. That's why people pass down generational curses, and they're not the nicest people, and they're insecure, and they don't love themselves. Because it's not easy to do this work. But if you want to ascend, if you want to evolve, if you want to create the reality that you truly desire, you have to do this work. It's part of it. Because that's the only thing that's keeping you from living the reality you want, is because of past pain that you have not been able to integrate into a beautiful lesson. And by the way, if you need some help doing that, holla at your girl, okay? Go to my website. You can get a reading. You can get an alchemy ceremony. That's what I would prefer. But check it out, because I know it's not easy. But I know you can do it because I did it. So let's get into it, right? And the last thing I will say for undoing all of this is to allow for a slow unfolding. This is the biggest one, I think. Because a lot of the times we have these ideas, these changes we want to make, and we get really, really excited about them, as you should. But then sometimes we think, okay, let's do a whole overhaul of our life and make all these changes. I'm going to wake up earlier, change my diet, work out more, stop watching TV. Hey, I love all of those things. Absolutely love them. But let's do one at a time. You know, let's chip away and not burn up the whole life. You know what I'm saying? And the reason I say that is because, first of all, it's not sustainable, right? When you first start doing something, of course, it's exciting. You're motivated. You have ambition. You're ready to go. But once you get used to it, it's the flair and the excitement goes down a lot naturally. And then you don't have so much eagerness to show up for all of these changes, you know? So that's number one. Number two is you have to think of your nervous system, right? You got to think of the ego, the brain, all of these very sensitive parts of you. You got to think about them. Because especially when you're used to abandoning yourself, you're used to certain comfort zones, if you throw all of that out the window and you're like, okay, I'm a brand new person right now today, your nervous system is going to be like, what? We're what? What are we? I don't know anything about any of this. You know what I mean? The nervous system needs a little bit of soothing, and it needs to know that it's safe. So it's not to say stop the changes or don't start the journey, but it's to say just do a little bit at a time. And also, do some breath work or meditation to help soothe your nervous system, because you want your nervous system to be relaxed so that way it's ready for expansion. Because when you're scared and in fight or flight, you're not expanding anything. I'm sure you can see just the rigidity and the tightness. But when you are soft and open, things can flow to you. Okay? Small commitments create a shift within you, in your world, that is not overwhelming, right? So maybe you can start by making your bed every day. Maybe you can start by making sure you drink enough water, maybe eating one vegetable, one fruit a day, Whatever your goal is, start with something small you can do and then build on from there. Okay? And also think about little things that will help you. Like for me, I wanted to do better with like my morning and nighttime routines. So I get on TikTok and I look up morning routine, and I just have my little morning routine TikTok friends and me. We're all doing our routines together. That's just something that helps me stay motivated and stay focused, you know? So just think about little things that you can do to help get that ball rolling for yourself. And please do not overwhelm yourself by trying to do it all at once. Okay? That's setting yourself up for failure, and I don't want you to get discouraged, honestly. Because I've done that with myself, and trust and believe. After like a week, I was like, never mind, So yeah, that's where I'm gonna leave it. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, let me know. I'm happy to keep this open dialogue. Also, if you have any tips for the ladies, leave them down below, because I'm someone that believes I know I don't know everything. And you never know what guidance you have that could help someone. Or if you have a question, maybe someone else has that question. So thank you for watching. If you would like more from me, I do have in the description box below, I have all of my social media. I also have my website. On my website is where you can go to book services. I have 2 online ceremonies coming up. There's one on the 16th, Envision the Mission, and one on the 30th, You Are Her. So if you'd like to learn more about that, I'll have them linked down below. You can also go to my website. And I also have a newsletter you can sign up for if you want to stay in touch and get bonus content and exclusive discounts, things like that. You can sign up for the newsletter. You do get a guided meditation sent to you, which I love the meditation, so check it out. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. So thank you for watching, ladies. I love you, love you, love you. Don't forget to share this video with another lady who might need some help, maybe need a little reminder. And like, comment, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Thank you, ladies. See you next time. Bye-bye.